Hi guys, I thought I might do a video talking a little bit more depth about how I use tarot for self-development for myself. Because it's actually not something I've talked about a huge amount. I've kind of gone into more about how I read for others and how I see that as working, because it's more problematic for a naturalistic perspective, generally speaking. If you're reading for yourself, it's very easy to see how that can fit into a naturalistic outlook on the tarot and how it works and that kind of thing, because you're coming at it with full information about your situation, and it's easier to come up with relevant answers, I think, or at least it's easier to see where those relevant answers might be coming from, as opposed to when you're reading for somebody else and it's more down to just intuitive insight and learning how to combine the cards' messages in a way that is useful for people depending on their situation and all that kind of thing. So I'm particularly excited about tarot at the moment. I don't know if it's necessary, you could necessarily call it a phase or whatever, but because ever since I first started using tarot, I have been pretty much constantly excited about it, but I do go through phases for a few months at a time where it's more at the forefront of my spiritual practice, or more at the forefront of my life in general, or just something that I'm feeling particularly excited about. There are a lot of things that I'm feeling particularly excited about right now, to be honest, which is one of the reasons I'm so busy and tired and chaotic. There's just a lot going on. But tarot has definitely taken a major place in my life again for the last couple of months. So primarily I do just use spreads when I'm reading the cards for myself, but there is a kind of a variety of different reasons that I might decide to do a spread for myself, and there are a variety of different kinds of spreads that I will do for myself. So first of all, I haven't done as many of these in recent months, but when I was first getting to know the tarot, first getting to grips with it, I used to do a lot of sort of just general spreads for myself. I used to use a variation of the Celtic Cross, and then I came up with, I think largely inspired by a spread that Kellyanne shared and ideas that Kellyanne shared, and also, just bits and pieces of what I felt myself was most useful for me. So I kind of had a general spread that I used for myself, which I do still use, but I haven't used it for myself in a while. I went through a phase of doing that for myself every month, and that for me was just a way of, well, first of all, getting to know the cards, because it was a very, very useful way of getting really familiar with the cards, of learning their messages. Because if I did a spread for myself and I looked at the cards and thought, oh, I'm not sure what that might be in relation to that, I would have to think about that and write about it and figure it out as I went along. But a lot of quite interesting insight into my life came out of that as well. And of course I've been going through quite a lot of changes in the past year in terms of I suppose you could say even my personality, in terms of my life and what it looks like and where it's going, and my spiritual practice. Everything has been changing a lot over the past couple of years really, but it's been over a year now since I started using tarot. So apart from just general spreads, I also devised a couple of spreads for myself that would look into more specific aspects of my personal growth and things like that. So one of the things I did was that I had a spread that was kind of based around looking at where I was in my spiritual practice at that time, and it kind of had spread positions for various aspects of my spirituality and what they were teaching me, or what I could learn from them, or what way I should go with them. And that's something again that I haven't done in quite a while, but that was quite interesting to me. One that I come back to again and again though is one that's more specifically about the self, and I can't even remember what I call it now. I do have a name for it, and I'm going to be offering this one on my Etsy shop when I open it up. But it's one that looks at 4 different aspects of the self: the ego, the shadow, the unconscious, and the conscious. I've kind of done that in the wrong order, but yeah. And then a 5th card which kind of gives an indication as to how to maybe bring together those 4 aspects of the self, or balance them, that kind of thing. So sort of like an advice card. So that spread, I generally start with the conscious and the unconscious, and then I have them sort of opposite each other, and then I have the ego and the shadow. So for me, the unconscious and the conscious, obviously the conscious card will kind of get the ball rolling, will maybe give me a particular aspect of my life, or a particular issue, a particular concern, a particular aspect of myself that I want to focus on. It's going to be something that, you know, something that has been consciously on my mind, something that I'm consciously thinking about, and that will sort of help to guide the rest of the reading. Then the unconscious card will give me suggestions on what might be going on underneath the surface with that, and what kind of unconscious beliefs or unconscious thought patterns, if there is such a thing. I'm sure there is, yeah, unconscious thought patterns, that's a thing. But you know what I mean. What kind of stuff is going on there below the surface that might be affecting those conscious patterns, or those conscious thoughts that are going on. Then the ego and the shadow ones are kind of interesting, because I generally associate the ego with the conscious mind, and the shadow with the unconscious mind, but it's not really as straightforward as that. The ego is maybe largely a product of the conscious mind. We tend to think of ourselves, like our ego tends to think of itself as being just the conscious mind and just those conscious thoughts. But the ego is also, I think, fueled by the unconscious, very much so. There are definitely things about ourselves that we are projecting onto our ego, that there are ways in which we are building up our ego, or have built up our ego, that have been informed by things that are in the unconscious, and things that we don't really realize exactly what's going on. So the ego card pertains maybe more to the conscious card, but also pertains very much to the unconscious card as well. And then the shadow card, again, the shadow I think of as pertaining more to the unconscious, because it's more about those things that we sweep under the carpet, things that we don't want to think about ourselves, maybe negative patterns, negative thought processes, all that stuff that basically has been booted out of the ego, that the ego has said, no, I'm not interested in that part of myself, I don't want that to be part of the official Anya. We're going to just shove that to one side. So it's, generally speaking, unconscious material, unconscious stuff that we're trying to get up to the surface so that we can integrate it and accept it, and maybe change or reduce the problems that it might be causing in our lives or in ourselves. But also there might be elements of the shadow self that we are conscious of. You know, we might be very aware that we have a bad temper, that we hold on to grudges, that, you know, all this kind of thing. So we may be conscious of parts of our shadow self, but then there may be root causes that we're not conscious of. There may be other parts of our shadow self that we're not conscious of at all, and all that kind of thing. So that's one that I find to be really illuminating, and something that I've done quite a lot with that is that once I've done that spread and it's brought up various issues for me, I might decide to delve further into one particular card. You know, say if a card that comes up for me a lot in the unconscious position is the Seven of Swords, and I might look at that and say, okay, so I'm getting feelings, maybe there are unconscious feelings going on here of my not being worthy, of feeling like a fraud, things like that, or, you know, something like that. And then I might go away and maybe draw a few more cards to delve into that issue a bit more. So when I'm doing these spreads, I always journal. It's basically tarot reading for myself. For me, is basically a journaling exercise, and I will write quite a lot. I will just kind of keep writing until I feel that I've gotten to the root of whatever that card might mean for me at that time. I also tend to sometimes just draw one card about a situation. I will sometimes draw or just create spreads if something has happened in my life, like if I've had an argument with somebody, or I've responded to something in a way that I'm not happy about. Sorry, that was just my phone. As you might be able to tell from that ringtone, I have a really old brick of a phone. No smartphones for me. A tablet is more than enough for me, for me to handle in terms of smartness of technological items. Anyway, So yeah, I might devise a small spread or just draw a few cards and try to think about what was the motivation behind the way I behaved, or the way I feel that somebody else behaved, and that kind of thing. So that'll be more on the fly. Sometimes I often carry a deck of cards around with me. I usually carry around my Rider-Waite deck. It's kind of my travel deck. But I think I might have to get another travel deck because the box for this one's getting a bit battered, and I've gotten very attached to my Rider-Waite deck, which I wasn't expecting to at the time when I bought it. So yeah, I don't do that as much these days again, but I will still sometimes just draw some cards on the fly, draw a card on the fly, just as kind of a way to get myself asking myself questions, to maybe get myself thinking in a different direction, to shake up what's going on in my head. I mean, I definitely find that I do experience quite a lot of synchronicity with the tarot, but for me it's mostly about using my intuition to take what I can from the card, even though the card is random, if you see what I mean. To me, like every single one of the 78 cards obviously pertains to different aspects of our lives and different moments in our lives. But at the same time, for me, I feel as though every single card is relevant in some way at any one time in our lives. I haven't really tested this, if you know what I mean, but I feel that it's definitely true. There's always going to be some aspect of that card that is relevant in some way for you at any one time, and it's, the further away it is from being the card that you might have picked out to represent your situation, almost the better, because it gives you more to think about. It gives you more of a convoluted road to go down to try and link A to B, to try and figure out, right, well, how might this card be relevant to me? And it can really get you thinking in new ways. But I talked about that before in I think my first video on tarot. I've mentioned before that I like to pick cards for every month, and I have a card for each Sabbath. And I will sort of print out that. I use the Shadowscapes deck for that, and I print out images and cut them up and put them on my altar every month. So I have 2 images per month and 1 per Sabbath, which basically covers most of the majors and most of the court cards. But I also kind of like to pick out a card that represents something that I am trying to aim for or strive for at any one time as well. And this was kind of how the monthly cards came about, because when I started doing it last April, I think, the Chariot was a really, really important card for me at that time. I was just kind of starting to really come out of myself and to really build up some major dreams that, just I was thinking outside of the box a bit more. And I was also struggling with balancing my emotions and with a really quite a destructive aspect of myself that flew off the handle too easily. That was I was just working through quite a lot of stuff, and the Chariot was just a really, really powerful card for me on many levels. So I chose that card as a card for the month to sort of guide me through the month. And I've stuck with that as a card for April now. But even though I have assigned those cards to each month, and I do like doing that, I definitely still will draw a card every now and then, or pick a card, or a card will just come to me, and I will just think, yes, that's me at this moment, that's what I want to aim for, and I try to do that consciously. I'll probably journal about the card then. I've done that with the Devil, with the Fool is my current card, the go-to card. And that's been for quite a while now that the Fool has been that sort of, I've been kind of striving for that feeling of just leaving the past behind and moving forward fearlessly and almost recklessly. I've also mentioned before about my my new daily practice, and I will actually do a video about this at some point once I've really got into the swing of it. But for the last month or two, I've been drawing a tarot card every day in the morning, and doing a small kind of devotional around that card. So I will come up with a mantra or something to go with the card, and I will do rounds of that interspersed with devotional words to the Morrigan. And I've been liking that a lot as well. I generally will, take sort of a positive aspect of the card, or something that I am currently maybe striving towards. And it's usually something simple, and I will kind of take the first words to come into my mind. But I've been enjoying doing that a lot, and I feel like it's definitely bonding me more to my Rider-Waite deck, which I've been using for that, because I'm very bonded to the Shadowscapes deck. That's the deck I learned with. But Rider-Waite has, until the last couple of months for me, been a little bit more mysterious. There are still cards that I haven't totally bonded with in the deck, as much as with my Shadowscapes deck, but I do really want to get to grips with this deck before I return to using the Shadowscapes on a day-to-day basis again. Because I think it'll just help me moving forward to get to grips with the Rider-Waite. And finally, something that I've been doing on and off, and that I think I'm going to be doing more, and working on the method a bit more, is drawing cards in order to express my current relationship with a deity, or to give me an idea about how I might want to go about embracing a certain deity, or communing with a certain deity, or working with a certain deity. And that one's a bit of a work in progress. It has just involved me just drawing one card, and just going with what I feel about that card, and what deity it brings to mind. But that's definitely something that I'm still very much working on, so it's kind of hard to explain the process, because it's still something that I've only been doing very sort of off the cuff, and that I've done a couple of times. But I'm interested in that because I'm interested in exploring what I do with ritual, in branching out a bit more with my ritual, in maybe incorporating some sort of magical practices into my practice, I think. So tarot will definitely be a part of that. I would definitely like to get tarot into the ritual space more, because currently, apart from my daily devotionals, tarot doesn't really feature. I used to do spreads for myself in the center of ritual, but that particular method hasn't felt quite right for me, because it's something that I associate with curling up with my journal on a quiet evening, and doing a bit of self-work, and just hasn't been quite slotting in with the feel of my ritual for the moment. But I'm definitely going to be exploring other ways to get the tarot deck into my ritual space more. I hope that gave you a couple of ideas maybe for how you might go about using your tarot cards for self-exploration, if that's not something that you're particularly familiar with. Everyone varies in how they use the tarot and all that kind of thing. And yeah, I'll definitely be making more videos on some of the things that I mentioned there. I'm going to be doing some shadow work, I think, in the next month or two, next couple of weeks. And I watched a video two videos actually by the Four Queens the other day on spreads for doing shadow work, and I think they're going to be really, really, really helpful. So if I might make a video about shadow work at some point in the distant future, when I've had a bit more experience with it. Okay guys, I'm going to leave it there. I hope you all had a wonderful Imbolc, and I hope you're enjoying the first couple of weeks of spring. It's spring here in Ireland anyway. I know it might not be where you are, but I hope you're enjoying the season anyway, and much love.